Okay everyone, it is time to settle down and get cozy because I have got a story for us. It is called The Perks of Being a Wallflower and it is a beautiful book. Anyways, we're at page 57, so get under your cover, make sure your pillows are all fluffed up and get ready to relax. November 18th, 1991. Dear friend, my brother finally called yesterday and he can't make it home for any part of Thanksgiving weekend because he is behind on school because of football. My mum was so upset that she took me shopping for new clothes. I know you think what I'm about to write is an exaggeration, but I promise you that it isn't. From the time we got into the car to the time we came home, my mum literally did not stop talking. Not once, not even when I was in the dressing room trying on slacks. She just stood outside the dressing room and worried out loud. The things she said went all over the place. First, it was that my dad should have insisted that my brother come home if only for an afternoon. Then it was that my sister had better start thinking more about her future and start applying to safety schools in case the good ones don't work out. And then she started saying that grey was a good colour for me. I understand how my mum thinks. I really do. It's like when we were little and we would go to the grocery store. My sister and brother would fight about things that my sister and brother would fight about. And I would sit at the bottom of the shopping cart and my mum would be so upset by the end of shopping that she would push the cart fast and I would feel like I was in a submarine. Yesterday was like that, except now I got to sit in the front seat. When I saw Sam and Patrick at school today, they both agreed that my mum has very good taste in clothing. I told my mum this when I got home from school and she smiled. She asked me if I wanted to invite Sam and Patrick over for dinner sometime after the holidays are over, because my mum gets nervous enough as it is during the holidays. I called Sam and Patrick and they said they would. I'm really excited. The last time I had a friend over to dinner was Michael last year. We had tacos. The really great part was that Michael stayed over to sleep. We ended up sleeping very little. We mostly just talked about things like girls and movies and music. The one part I remember distinctly was walking around the neighbourhood at night. My parents were asleep along with the rest of the houses. Michael looked into all the windows. It was dark and quiet. He said, "Do you think those people are nice?" I said, "The Andersons? Yeah, they're old." "Well, what about those people?" "Well, Miss Lambert doesn't like baseballs going into her yard." "What about those people?" "Miss Tanner has been visiting her mother for 3 months. Mr. Tanner spent his weekend sitting on the back porch and listening to baseball games." "I don't really know if they're nice or not because they don't have children." "Is she sick?" "Is who sick?" "Miss Tanner's mother." "I don't think so. My mum would know, and she didn't say anything." Michael nodded. "They're getting a divorce." "You think so?" "Uh-huh." We just kept walking. Michael had a way of walking quiet sometimes. I guess I should mention that my mum heard that Michael's parents are divorced now. She said that only 70% of marriages stay together when they lose a child. I think she read it in a magazine somewhere. Love always, Charlie. Alright, we're on to page 60 now. November 23rd, 1991. Dear friend, do you enjoy holidays with your family? I don't mean your mum and dad family, but your uncle and aunt and cousin family. Personally, I do. There are several reasons for this. First, I'm very interested and fascinated by how everyone loves each other, but no one really likes each other. Second, the fights are always the same. They usually start when my mum's dad, my grandfather, finishes his third drink. It is around this time he starts to talk a lot. My grandfather usually just complains about black people moving into the old neighbourhood, and then my sister gets upset at him, and then my grandfather tells her that she doesn't know what she's talking about because she lives in the suburbs. And then he says how no one visits him in his retirement home. And finally, he starts talking about all of the family secrets, like how cousin so-and-so knocked up that waitress from the big boy. I should probably mention that my grandfather can't hear very well, so he says all of these things really, really loud. My sister tries to fight him, but she never wins. My grandfather is definitely more stubborn than she is. My mum usually helps her aunt prepare the food, which my grandfather always says is too dry, even if it's soup. And her aunt will then cry and lock herself in the bathroom. There is only one bathroom in my great aunt's house, so this turns to trouble when all the beer starts to hit my cousins. They stand twisted in bladder positions and bang on the door for a few minutes and almost coax my great aunt out. But then my grandfather curses something at my great aunt and the cycle starts over again, with the exception of the one holiday when my grandfather passed out just after dinner. My cousins always have to go to the bathroom outside in the bushes. If you look out the windows like I do, you can see them, and it looks like they're on one of their hunting trips. I feel terribly sorry for my girl cousins and my other great aunts because they don't really have the bushes option, especially when it's cold. I should mention that my dad usually just sits real quiet and drinks. My dad is not a big drinker at all, but when he has to spend time with my mum's family, he gets loaded, as my cousin Tommy says. Deep down, I think my dad would rather spend the holiday with his family in Ohio. That way, he wouldn't have to be around my grandfather. He doesn't like my grandfather very much, but he keeps quiet about it, even on the ride home. He just doesn't think it's his place. As the evening comes to an end, my grandfather is usually too drunk to do much of anything. My dad and my brother and my cousins carry him out to the car of the person who is least angry at him. It has always been my job to open doors for them along the way. My grandfather is very fat. I remember there was one time that my brother drove my grandfather back to the retirement home, and I rode along. My brother always understood my grandfather. He rarely got angry at him unless my grandfather said something mean about my mum or sister or made a scene in public. I remember it was snowing really hard and it was real quiet, almost peaceful. And my grandfather calmed down and started talking in a different kind of talk. He told us that when he was 16, he had to leave school because his dad died and someone had to support the family. He talked about the time when he had to go to the mill 3 times a day to see if there was any work for him. And he talked about how cold it was and how hungry he was because he made sure his family always ate before him. Things he said we just wouldn't understand because we were lucky. Then he talked about his daughters, my mum and Aunt Helen. I know how your mum feels about me. I know Helen too. There was one time I went to the mill, no work, none. I came home at 2 in the morning, pissed and pissed. Your grandmother showed me their report cards, C plus average, and these were smart girls. So I went into their room and I beat some sense into them. And when it was done and they were crying, I just held up their report cards and said, "This will never happen again." She still talks about it, your mother. But you know something? It never did happen again. They went to college, both of them. I just wish I could have sent them. I always wanted to send them. I wish Helen could have understood that. I think your mother did, deep down. She's a good woman. You should be proud of her. When I told my mum about this, she just looked very sad, because he could never say those things to her. Not ever. Not even when he walked her down the aisle. But this Thanksgiving was different. It was my brother's football game, which we bought a VCR tape of for my relatives to watch. The whole family was gathered around the TV, even my great aunts, who never watched football. I'll never forget the looks on their faces when my brother took the field. It was a mixture of all things. My one cousin works in a gas station, and my other cousin has been out of work for 2 years since he injured his hand. And my other cousin has been wanting to go back to college for around 7 years. And my dad said once that they were very jealous of my brother because he had a shot in life and was actually doing something about it. But in that moment when my brother took the field, all that washed away and everyone was proud. At one point, my brother made a very big play on 3rd down and everyone cheered even though some of us had already seen the game before. I looked up at my dad and he was smiling. I looked at my mum and she was smiling, even though she was nervous about my brother getting hurt, which was strange because it was a VCR tape of an old game and she knew he didn't get hurt. My great aunts and my cousins and their children and everyone were also smiling, even my sister. There were only 2 people who weren't smiling, my grandfather and I. My grandfather was crying, the kind of crying that is quiet and a secret. The kind of crying that only I noticed. I thought about him going into my mum's room when she was little and hitting my mum and holding up her report cards and saying that her bad grades would never happen again. And I think now that maybe he meant my older brother or my sister or me, that he would make sure that he was the last one to work in a mill. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if it's better to have your kids be happy and not go to college. I don't know if it's better to be close with your daughter or make sure that she has a better life than you do. I just don't know. I was just quiet and I watched him. When the game was over and dinner was finished, everyone said what they were thankful for. A lot of it had to do with my brother or family or children or God. And everyone meant it when they said it, regardless of what would happen tomorrow. When it came to my turn, I thought about it a lot because this was my first time sitting at the big table with all the grown-ups since my brother wasn't here to take his seat. I'm thankful that my brother played football on television so nobody fought. Most of the people around the table looked uncomfortable. I don't know why I struggled with that. Some looked angry. My dad looked like he knew I was right. But he didn't want to say anything because it wasn't his family. My mum was nervous about what her dad would do. Only one person at the table said anything. It was my great aunt, the one who usually locks herself in the bathroom. Amen. And somehow that made it all right. When we were all getting ready to leave, I walked up to my grandfather and gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek. He wiped my lip print off with his palm and gave me a look. He doesn't like the boys in the family to touch him, but I'm very glad that I did it anyway in case he dies. I never got to do that with Aunt Helen. Love always, Charlie. December 7th, 1991. Dear friend, have you ever heard of a thing called Secret Santa? It's this activity where a group of friends draw names out of a hat, and they're supposed to buy a lot of Christmas presents for whatever person they choose. The presents are secretly placed in their lockers when they're not there. Then, at the end, you have a party and all the people reveal who they really are as they give their last presents. Sam started doing this with a group of friends 3 years ago. Now, it's some tradition, and supposedly the party at the end is always the best of the year. It happens the night after our last day of school before the break. I don't know who got me. I got Patrick. I'm really glad I got Patrick, even though I wished for Sam. I haven't seen Patrick in a few weeks, except in shop class, because he has been spending most of his time with Brad. So thinking about presents is a good way to think about him. The first present is going to be a mixtape. I just know that it should. I already have the songs picked and a theme. It's called One Winter, but I've decided not to hand colour the cover. The first side has a lot of songs by the Village People and Blondie because Patrick likes that type of music a lot. It also has Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, which Sam and Patrick love. But the second side is the one I like the most. It has winter kind of songs. Here they are. Asleep by the Smiths, Vapor Trail by Ride, Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel, A Winter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum, Time of No Reply by Nick Drake, Dear Prudence by the Beatles, Gypsy by Suzanne Vega, Nights in White Satan by the Moody Blues, Daydream by Smashing Pumpkins, Dusk by Genesis, before Phil Collins was even in the band, MLK by U2, Blackbird by the Beatles, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, and finally, Asleep by the Smiths, again. I spent all night working on it, and I hope Patrick likes it as much as I do, especially the second side. I hope it's the kind of second side that he can listen to whenever he drives alone and feels like he belongs to something whenever he's sad. I hope it can be that for him. I had an amazing feeling when I finally held the tape in my hand. I just thought to myself that in the palm of my hand there was this one tape that had all of those memories and feelings and great joy and sadness right there in the palm of my hand. And I thought about how many people have loved those songs and how many people got through a lot of bad times because of those songs, and how many people enjoyed good times with those songs, and how much those songs really mean. I think it would be great to have written one of those songs. I bet if I wrote one of them, I would be very proud. I hope the people who wrote those songs are happy. I hope that they feel it's enough. I really do, because they've made me happy, and I'm the and I'm only one person. I can't wait to get my driver's license. It's coming up soon. Incidentally, I've not told you about Bill in a while, but I guess there's not a lot to tell because he just keeps giving me books that he doesn't give his other students, and I keep reading them, and he keeps asking me to write papers, and I do. In the last month or so, I have read The Great Gatsby and A Separate Piece. I'm starting to see a real trend in the kind of books Bill gives me to read. And just like the tape of songs, it is amazing to hold each of them in the palm of my hand. They are all my favourites, all of them. Love always, Charlie. Alright, well that was The Perks Being a Wallflower. I hope you guys had a nice time relaxing and listening to me. If you have any suggestions or anything, please feel free to write in the comments. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time. So peace.